What's up, everyone? Welcome back to Echoes of Elsewhere, the podcast where we step inside the world of abandoned places, forgotten spaces, and the echoes they leave behind. I'm your host, Courtney Autumn, and today we're not sneaking through fences or climbing through broken windows. Not physically, at least. Because this time, the journey isn't about where we go, it's about why we go. If you've ever felt that strange pull toward a boarded-up hospital, a collapsing farmhouse, if you've stood in the middle of ruins and felt something settle within you, you are not alone. Today, we are stepping into the psychology of abandonment, why we're drawn to forgotten places. We'll explore the emotional, psychological, and even spiritual reasons why so many of us are captivated by decay, why we find beauty in brokenness, and what that says. Not just about these places, but about us. Let me start by saying that there's no practical reason to walk into an abandoned place or a place that nature has already claimed. No tourist brochure is out there telling us to seek out rust and mold and decay, and yet we go. We push open warped doors, navigate collapsing floors, and stand still in the middle of something that was once alive. A school bell that rang, a kitchen that served, a waiting room full of hope or dread. Psychologists call this attraction to decay a fascination with liminal space, places that exist in between use and uselessness, between what is and what was, between life and afterlife, in a way. These spaces are quiet, still, stripped of modern distractions, but they're also charged with what used to be there, with what could have been. There's the aesthetic pleasure to a rawness that's sometimes referred to as ruin porn, which can sound reductive or even a bit dismissive, but it does reflect something true, which is that there is a haunting kind of beauty in brokenness. But as we know, it isn't just about taking photos of peeling paint or rusted beds. It's about what these places do to us internally. Of course, there is one of my favorite elements, and I'm sure an element that we all love about Urbex, at least for me, like I said, which is the thrill and the rush. Psychologists call it sensation seeking, a trait found in people who actively pursue novel, intense, and sometimes risky experiences. So think cliff jumpers, base jumpers, storm chasers, that kind of thing. Urban explorers are part of that spectrum too. Walking into the unknown triggers a very biological response. Your heart rate spikes, your senses sharpen. You become hyper aware of your surroundings, the creaking stair, the gust of wind, the echo from somewhere deeper inside of the building. It's dopamine and adrenaline working together. Not unlike what thrill seekers experience during extreme sports or something like that, this thrill is not manufactured. It's real and it's earned. And there's also the forbidden energy to Urbex. We're often somewhere we are technically not supposed to be, and our brain knows that. This taps into a part of our psychology called transgressive behavior, the quiet or not so quiet rebellion we feel when we step outside social norms. When we say, I'll find beauty in the decay, I'll make meaning in the places the world forgot. And sometimes we want to just feel alive, I think. to push through fear, to test the limits of our courage and curiosity, urban exploration offers that in a way that's both risky and deeply personal. It's about being awake and alive more than it is about being reckless, at least in my opinion. But beyond the rush, beyond the visual appeal, there's something else, something slower, something more internal. We don't just explore places, we explore ourselves through them. And I asked some of you, my fellow explorers, why do you do it? Why do you explore? And here are some of the responses I got. Chris said to bring beauty to things people don't tend to see beauty in, to make a forgotten world alive again. And I just thought that was so beautiful. And that just goes back to exactly what I said, which is that Urbex is way more about feeling alive than it is about being reckless or anything of that nature. John said, I'm drawn to both the artistic and historical value that many of these places have. He also said that it has led him into becoming a more seasoned photographer, being represented by a local art gallery. It has allowed him to publish a couple of books and appreciate history more on a social, cultural level. I thought that was amazing. And I really appreciated his input because he is an artist. He has ventured into a very artistic space with urban exploration. And he's someone I'm really interested in talking to be honest with you, because I feel like it's so important to get so many sides of why people do what they do, how they're doing it, what it's brought them. Decaying History said, it seems like the only time my mind is at ease and quiet, which so true. Sometimes urban exploration brings about way more peace than you could ever imagine having in a space that's usually filled with decay and ruin. It's a very peaceful, almost meditative experience. So I second that, Decaying History. I totally second what you said. Rose Urbex said to lose my mind and find my soul, which you guys know if you've listened to the interview that Rose is on from season 1. This is so reflective of her personality. When you watch her explore and you watch her in Abando, you can just tell that another part of her comes alive. And it's just really beautiful. That's why I love exploring with people, especially for the first time, and meeting them and getting together that way. It's a way more intimate experience than people would think, and it really creates closeness with the people that you explore with, especially once you learn to trust them. Rose is one of those people for me, so I appreciate Rose putting in her input, but like I said, very on brand for Rose, and same here. Kenneth said, it's my therapy, it's my getaway. Again, goes back to almost what Rose said about finding your soul and what Decaying History said about it seeming like the only time that your mind is at ease. Very meditative, very therapeutic. Like I said, it is just such a great thing to experience, which is why I love doing this podcast. I love talking about Urbex. I love talking to other people that love Urbex as much as I do. It can never get old. Truly, it can never get old. And that is such a huge part of it, is because it is so therapeutic to a lot of us. I think it heals us. I think it brings us peace. It allows us to have an escape, an outlet. So thank you to Kenneth for your input on why you do Urbex. Again, totally agree. It is very, very therapeutic. Above.Sunshine said, for me, in exploring lays a potential of inner growth and becoming the version of myself I want to be. I've talked about Above.Sunshine on an episode in season 1, I believe, about the spectrum of Urbex. She is an airbexer, and I'm just obsessed with her content. I'm obsessed with her. I love her just so much. I don't know her at all. We've never met in person, and we don't really talk at all. Essentially, she's a stranger, but the amount of courage and strength and resilience and all of that it takes to do what she does is always so impressive. And yeah, thank you to Above.Sunshine for your input. I agree. Again, it's such a deeply personal and intimate experience to do Urbex. and find passion in ruin. And it seems like a lot of us have a very deep personal and therapeutic experience while exploring. And last but not least, my bestie for the restie, Abandoned Broad, said, "For my fucking sanity." And that's honestly so on brand for Abandoned Broad. I just love her so much. And again, second what she said, I think that if I couldn't urbex, I would lose my mind. I nearly have until I started doing it again. So I can vouch for Abandoned Broad and probably the rest of us that do this for our fucking sanity. So I'm here for it. Anyways, moving on, like I said, it seems like there's a very therapeutic, meditative, almost spiritual layer to urbex. For many, exploring abandoned places feels like a kind of ritual, a sacred act. Not in the religious sense, though for some it absolutely can be, but in that quiet way you feel when standing somewhere with history, with energy, with grief. Have you ever stood in an old hospital room, the kind with flaking mint green paint and rusted medical equipment, and felt like someone was watching? Not in a threatening way, but in a remembering way. Like the room remembered what it used to hold, and being there, so did you. There's a comfort in that. Urban exploration can be grounding, a reminder of mortality, of resilience, of how silence can speak louder than noise. So, why are we drawn to abandonment? Because we're not just thrill seekers, we're not just photographers, we're not just adventurers. We're memory keepers, story hunters, people looking for proof that beauty still exists, even when no one is watching. We find stillness in places the world considers chaotic. We find meaning in places labeled empty. And sometimes when we step through the dust and into the dark, we find ourselves. If you've ever felt something shift inside you while exploring a forgotten place, I definitely want to hear about it. Send me your thoughts, your stories, your messages, your DMs, your comments. You can find me on Instagram and TikTok at Urbex Echoes. I'm on Facebook at Echoes of Elsewhere. As always, everyone mentioned in this episode and all of my info for the podcast will be linked in the description, so feel free to find me and to reach out. I will be back next week. Until then, keep exploring the allure in the abandoned, the beauty of decay, and the echoes of elsewhere.